Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right. Welcome to Politics Done Right on KPFT with Egberto Willies. We have a great show for you today, but before we go to the show, we have this huge offer. Listen, folks, one of the people that we're interviewing today is Brian Carr of the Chief Advance Officer of Northwest Assistance Ministries, NAM. And we have a great offer from Teresa Allen, who is going to, if you want to help people in Houston, she's going to donate $1,000. She's going to donate $1,000 to NAM to help Houstonians who are going through dire straits with the pandemic. If you go ahead today and call 713-526-5738 and support Politics Done Right on KPFT, she will be given $1,000 to the Northwest Assistance Ministries, NAM. So please extend your offer, extend your donation, extend your support for KPFT, which will also extend your support for all of Houston through this project of helping Houstonians. 713-526-5738. Make sure to do it in the name of Politics Done Right. And do remember you can support it as well at kpft.org in support of Politics Done Right. Anyhow, today we have Virginia Parks, who's going to give her experience with COVID, and we have Brian Carr, which is a Chief Advance Officer of Northwest Assistance Ministry, the ministries that we're going to help Houston. And of course, we have a special insert that I want you to listen to. Right here with me is one of our strong activists here in Houston, Virg Parks. How are you doing today, my friend?
Hi, I'm feeling pretty good, comparatively speaking. Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, I feel like I've survived something.
You know why? Because you did. Let's get a start here. Folks, for a long time, people have been talking about COVID-19 as if it was just something simple. It affects people in many different ways. But what hurts the most is when people make light of it and put many of our fellow citizens at risk. Well, here is somebody who's been active in the community, somebody who has always been a stalwart, a strong person. And you know what? COVID-19 taught her something. Virginia, Tell me a little bit about yourself, first of all. Just a little bit. Let people know that you're just one of us.
Former obsessive HIV treatment activist, which played a huge role in my how I handled COVID. But I was very blessed, and so used to be an HIV treatment activist. Actually, have met Tony Fauci. It's not like we're Facebook buds, but and then moved home. I lived in San Francisco for many years. Moved back to Houston to help take care of my mom in 2002. Anyway, and lived in Philly for a while. I've pretty much been a social justice activist as long as I can remember. I realized a few years ago what I used to think that my mom and dad went to lots of picnics and parades with Black people. and they took us with them. And so I never really thought anything of it. I was like, yeah, we just, there's always good food, right? And so and I was like 4, I think. And a few years ago, my brother said, Doofus, those were rallies and marches that they were taking us to. And so Yeah. So I
You
think
were an
so. My
activist
parents,
from before you knew you were
yeah,
an
yeah.
activist.
My parents were union organizers. They were involved. Not they weren't like leaders, but they were definitely involved in the civil rights movement, campaigned for Barbara Jordan, um, and so it's kind of in my blood. And so when the AIDS epidemic hit, I knew I had to do more than I was able to do here in Texas. So I did. I went to San Francisco on vacation, went to one ACT UP Golden Gate meeting, um, and the die was cast.
And
And
then you
so
became
I,
forever an activist. No
oh
matter
yeah,
what
and
kind of
then
job you
yeah,
had, you was an
yeah,
activist. You were
yeah.
an activist.
So yeah, pretty much,
Well,
yeah.
look, let me tell you something, Virginia. When I first of all, I want to thank you for something, right? A lot of people, when they get sick, they get some sort of illness, they kind of run in a hole and they act as if it's a shame or they don't let anybody know what's
Yeah,
going on. And I have a completely different feel for that, right? I have a wife who has lupus and we've always spoken out about it. My daughter recently
hmm,
got a stroke and we've always spoke about it. And one of the reasons I do that is because too many people, I believe, suffer in silence. So what I like with social media, the part of social media that I like, is it gives people who want to be honest an opportunity to come out there and tell their stories so that other people, even if they're in their home alone, they don't feel alone. They know that other people are going
yeah.
through the same kinds of things. So when I started to read your story, you were chronologically going through your COVID experience. And all I could think about is, wow, that is really good. So why don't you tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about it?
Well, and I felt that that was important, and it was actually very intentional. I think I had a comment in one of them, because I had the experience as an AIDS activist of having friends that I would. We didn't have social media and even cell phones then,
Mm-hmm.
but I had a fax machine that was right by my bed, and so I hated when I would get those midnight faxes because quite often it was because somebody died. And
Right.
I had friends all over the country from all over the people I had met, especially HIV positive women from all over the world. And so, um, and so I frequently had that experience of hearing that someone had died, and I didn't even, and I knew they had HIV, of course, but I didn't know they were sick. I had been in a meeting with them 2 weeks prior, and then suddenly they're dead. Um, I had that experience then, and have gone through a lot of PTSD, and so people in the LGBT community, especially, or healthcare providers that have a lot of experience with HIV and AIDS, you might be experiencing some PTSD as well. Recognize it, own it, um, and um, and so I think it started when our beloved Reverend Vicky Gibbs died from resurrection, and it was devastating because, well, I mean, because it's Vicky, right? But also because I didn't even know that she was positive. I didn't know she and
Mm-hmm.
her wife were infected, until we were about to start a new study group, and we get this message on Facebook saying, "Hey, we're both positive. I'm still like not back to 100%. We'll have to postpone the start. We'll start it next week." That was on a Tuesday, I believe. On Friday, she died,
Wow.
and it was traumatic for us, and kind of a weird. I'm one of these people who looks for silver linings, and so I just always do. And a silver lining is that her message has been spread far and wide. Her last sermon has been watched probably by millions of people. It's and she talked about how she died in July, and so she talked about how this pandemic is going to disproportionately affect BIPOC people more, and people of lower income, and the disenfranchised are just going to be affected even more. And anyway, and so um, a- and and so then recently, within the last week, another beloved member of our community died rather suddenly. Um, was sick for 5 days, and um, and then and I and then gone. And so, like you were saying, I mean, of course, during the AIDS epidemic, there was so much shame and stigma attached to it. And it's kind of confusing. And, and we fought as AIDS activists, part of um, our advocacy as treatment activist was to remove that stigma, because if people are going to get treated for it, they have to come forward. They have to,
Now,
they have to be not afraid.
do you think that a lot of times there, even though there shouldn't be, that is sort of what goes on with COVID? I don't want anybody to know that I have COVID because they may not want to be
Yes.
around me later on.
Yes. And I have difficulty. I mean, even though it was wrong during the AIDS epidemic, it was somewhat understandable because, we are a prudish country. But with COVID, it's more difficult for me to fathom why there is that shame attached.
Hmm.
And I think it's because we're still asking. Quite often people asked of me, how did you get it?
Actually, and you know
And
what? Believe it or not, that is one of the questions and I think it's not that
yeah,
particular way of getting it, given it's COVID.
right.
It's like, well, can you give me pointers as to what you think may have
About,
given?
well, and yeah, and I think it is relevant in that sense. And I had a friend ask me in one of the meetings this week, um, and and he said, I hope this doesn't offend you, but I'm wanting, because he knows I'm careful.
Right.
I work in a medical setting. I probably caught it from a patient at work. Most of my counseling is done over the phone. So the things that have to be done in person, of course, patients there, and then we send them out to their car, and I talk to them over the phone. But on occasion, um, I have to
See them.
have, yeah, I have to see them in person. And so, I mean, getting back to Reverend Vicky, the last thing she said to me, and it was, now looking back, it was so intuitive. The last thing she said to me is, be very, very careful, Virg. It only takes a few
A slip.
seconds, just one slip. And that was the last thing that she said to me. And it was on Facebook.
Right.
And um and and so, and I think that's how it happened. I just I had, initially with the first surge, I was double masking. I was wearing the N95s, and then another cloth
The
mask
surgical
over
over,
that,
yeah.
or I would wear the surgical and a cloth mask. And I kind of gradually loosened my own protocol a
Right.
little bit. I loosened it a little bit and a little bit and a little bit. And because most of the time I'm not having, as we learn more and more about it, and and the effect of mask, and which is best, and who has to wear it, and blah blah blah, and how much time it takes to actually transmit it,
Hmm.
unless somebody like just comes and coughs in your face. You have to spend some time with them. So that's why I think, anyway. So um and most of the time I'm just walking past patients,
Hmm.
you know quite often reminding them, put up your mask, pull up your mask, please put your mask back on, would you please put your mask back on. And I even lightened up on that, because it was just so frustrating. I felt like I was dealing with a room full of teenagers.
Hmm.
You are grown women. You should not have, I shouldn't have to remind you like I'm your mom. And please
Right.
don't roll your eyes at me when I tell you to put on your mask.
Right.
And initially I was really, and when initially when somebody said, why do I have to wear the mask the whole time? I said, because do you really want me to die in a hospital with tubes down my throat? Do you hate me that much? I mean, I was really frank about it. And and then I lightened up on that. So I did let my guard down. I
So then it was
did
and it
looson my personal protocols a bit. I mean,
so but
I
you see
wasn't
a
going
lot
out
of
and
people.
partying.
You see a
Yeah,
lot of people. So I mean, I imagine you,
right.
yeah.
Was
Uh-huh.
tested on a Monday. Got my negative result on Tuesday. And then on Saturday evening, I felt a little run down. I am that person that the minute I start feeling a little of anything, scratchy throat, allergies, anything, I got my pulse oximeter out. I'm checking that. I'm checking my fever, my temperature, and went to bed early. Woke up the next day, felt like crap, and I felt it was like I had a sinus infection that had
Mm-hmm.
just hit suddenly, and I was pretty much in denial about it. Like, and the urgent care doctor was saying, "Well, did you have any symptoms beforehand?" And I was like, "No, not really." She's like, "What?" She said, "Well, sinus infections don't usually come on that quickly." And I said, "Well, but I did. I had some congestion earlier in the week. I did. Yeah, I had some. I was like trying. I was trying to convince myself and the urgent care doc that it was not COVID."
So when did they do the next test?
So they did the test that day. They tested me for flu and COVID, but and then my boss had me come in the next morning to go ahead and get a test because the doctor can expedite it. We would get
Right.
the results the next day from the test that they did at urgent care. I didn't get the results for another 4 days.
And did they
I
both
mean, which
match as
is
positive?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the ah oops, sorry.
That's okay.
I think that was is I mean that's one of the delay in testing. This is where that's relevant. I mean, some people, it's like all of these, the kind of the minutia, the details of managing this pandemic. So one of the lessons I learned is that, and the urgent care doctor said, kind of, you have symptoms of COVID. I mean, and but it was also the classic symptoms of a sinus infection. I had pain and pressure. I had a screaming headache. I had congestion. I had overall malaise and just fatigue and just felt like crap, and so um, one word of advice would be um, to assume you have COVID.
Right,
If
right.
you're sick, assume it's COVID because it might take a few days to get your test results back.
Now, after
Now,
you found out that you had it, that means you probably by then would have had it about 4 or 5 days.
probably. And so I can't help but think of all of you know, I was thinking of like all the people
That you're
that
in
I
touch with.
had an encounter with, patients, even that was brief, patients, coworkers, the woman who came up to the window at HEB for the curbside, and like, "Hi, are you Virg?" And thankfully, I know when that happened, I actually had, like, yeah, just kind of cracked the window a little bit. Yeah, yeah, I'm her, um, but I had left blueberries off of my order, so I ran in really quick um, to the produce section and grabbed some blueberries. And I was thinking, so I'm racking my brain and thinking, like, oh my god, how many people did I encounter? Of course, I had on a mask, but
Right.
still, and it's just, and now we're hearing about this more virulent,
Mm-hmm.
aggressive virus. It does. I hear that the symptoms are not any worse, but it's just very, very easily transmitted.
The
This
one that's
one that
hit
they're
in
seeing
England right now in the
in Europe,
UK.
and yeah,
Yeah.
yep, yep. And it's going to be, by tomorrow, it's going to be in other countries. It is.
Right. But
And
so after there was one message that I saw where apparently you were doing fine at home, but you started to have breathing problems a few days into it. I think
I,
that was like 8 days
it
or 10.
was, yeah, it was about a week later that what really frightened me, and because my pulse ox had been, it had been kind of like wavering at that point. It was like 92, 93, but it would always come back up to 94. It wasn't consistently under. I
Right.
decided to set 94 as my marker. The urgent care doc said 95. If I'd gone to the ER every time it went below 95%, it I would have been living at the ER, right?
Right.
And so I decided to set consistently under 94 as my marker. But what really motivated me to go was when I got up that morning, walked my dog. It was exhausting. It was like an 8-minute walk.
Mm-hmm.
We went down the stairs, across the courtyard, up the elevator. That, and and it was exhausting. And I had been really committed to aggressive self-care,
Mm-hmm.
like literally every 4 hours taking a Mucinex, other medications, doing my breathing exercise, checking my pulse ox, etc. And I woke up that morning and I just didn't care anymore. And so that was the part that really scared the hell out of me, is that my determination was gone.
You just
I
didn't
was
care.
ready. I was ready to take a nap and let it take me. I stopped caring. Yes, I
Right.
stopped caring. And so it's like this virus is so insidious. It's as if it has an actual character and personality. You know, it's of course, any virus is a living creature. I mean, of sorts, an entity. But it's as if it was like something on a Star Trek virus that that not only has the ability to attack all different parts of the body and all different people. I mean, I've had so many friends who went through this, and like you said, a lot of times I didn't know until like they came out to me after I came out,
Mm-hmm.
and then they were like, well, yeah, I had
I
it
had it.
too.
Well,
I
look,
you know
Verge, I'm running
and
out of time, so let me ask
oh
you to do me a
no.
big favor.
Okay.
You had what I liked about one of the things that you said in your blog is that you're not a doctor, but this is what I
Mhm.
did, and it
Yeah,
seemed to
yeah,
work.
yeah.
So
Oh
please
yeah,
tell the people
I
what you did that seemed to
I want to
work
get
for
I
you.
do want to get that out. Thank you. Um, but not a doctor. Okay, this was my experience. Um, I I took Mucinex every 4 hours. So every 4 hours around the clock, I had alarms set. So every 4 hours, I took Mucinex. The logic is that the lungs fill up with fluids. That's a bad thing. So Mucinex DM. I was alternating ibuprofen and Tylenol to keep the inflammation and the fever and the body aches down. I So when I took the Mucinex, of course, I was drinking a big glass of liquids, a lot of Pedialyte and Gatorade. You want to get those electrolytes in. I was also checking my pulse ox, with my little oximeter,
Mm-hmm.
which let me note, it's the readings are different for people of color
Mm-hmm.
because of the melanin.
Right.
So if you're a person of color, don't use the numbers that I use. You want to be really aware. If it drops below 95, you want to be really aware of your breathing. If you're having any breathing issues, get your butt to the ER, so they can take a blood sample and get
The
the
real, yeah.
absorption that way. Yeah. But and so every 4 hours, I was also doing breathing exercises, which involved deep breathing, trying to really fill every little inch of my lungs,
So they
holding
don't
it for
collapse,
10
yeah.
seconds, right? Holding it for 10 seconds, and then breathing out through a straw, my little trusty straw.
Right.
Because and a nurse had explained the logic of that, and I don't remember, but it's something about like filling up all of those little parts of the, and emptying them out of the lungs. Start taking vitamin D right now, D3. More and more studies are coming out that they're seeing that people with COVID are D deficient, and most of us are anyway. So a lot of the stuff that I did, it's not going to hurt. It's kind of so of course, if you have hemophilia, for example, you're not going to take my aspirin a day. Blood
Right.
clots are common with COVID, so I was taking a low dose aspirin. I started taking, well, I was already taking the D3 because of heart issues, and I took a good multivitamin. So if you're not taking any vitamins right now, start take a good solid multivitamin and vitamin D, D3. And I added, of course, extra orange in the form of extra C, in the form of orange juice, lots and lots of orange juice. A very powerful antioxidant called NAC, N-acetylcysteine, which was used early on in HIV care, self-care. So a lot of these things actually come from. I had this awesome friend in Northern California who is super nerd, and she was doing research and saying, okay, there's studies to back up this, there's studies to back up this. So everything I was doing, there is research to back it up. I mean, doctors are learning firsthand. So zinc, of course. So the minute you have any kind of symptoms, add extra zinc. So we're talking D, multivitamin C, zinc, NAC, a low dose aspirin. And one study has shown that people who were taking Pepsid, who knows why, had a better outcome. So I thought, what the heck? It fell into the it can't hurt category.
Right.
One of the things to be aware of is that, and of course, if somebody has hemophilia, you can't take the aspirin and ibuprofen. If you have blood pressure issues, in my case, I was also that every 4 hours I was waking up, taking my meds, checking my pulse ox, checking my temperature, doing my breathing exercises, drinking lots of fluids, get up, walk to the bathroom, walk around a little bit, and then go back to bed. And then the alarm would go off 4 hours later. I'd do it all again. But I was also using my albuterol inhaler because I do have asthma,
Mm-hmm.
and I was using that every 4 hours. And that combined with the ibuprofen was jacking up my heart rate. So that was when I went to the ER. The doctor, who actually, I felt stupid at one point because code blues were going off all around me. There was somebody had an active heart attack around the corner. They had to intubate several people in the ER. I thought, why am I here? I'm sorry, I'm wasting your time. And I don't remember if it was the doctor or the nurse who said, no, we'd rather see 10 of you than
Right.
that person
Because
we have
what you
to
do is you
intubate.
actually go in before you're into some sort of an arrest. But
Correct.
look,
Right.
Virginia, I have to go
Uh-huh.
now, but I want to ask you to give, tell us something in 30 seconds that I should have asked you that you want to get out there.
Um, I vaccine, the vaccine people, I can attest because I sat in the rooms with researchers. I was a treatment nerd. Um, Researchers have been working toward these kind of vaccines for decades, decades. I know it seems rushed, but it was, but yeah, it's not. They've been working on it for a long time. And one reason we were able to move as quickly on this is thanks to Chinese researchers who, before their government shut everything down, they got the word out. In part because of the AIDS epidemic, researchers share information a lot better. They have platforms. So they used to hang on to their data until they presented it. It was all about publishing and presenting. Now, so these these very heroic people shared that data
Yeah, they did release a
with
genome.
with the world. And that's so then, because they've been working on the mRNA vaccines for decades, they're they were able just to plug in the the genome, and that's why we have these vaccines.
In other
And so
words,
I know it's new, I know it's scary, and I know some of you going to wait until the rest of us get our vaccines. That's okay. I am happy to be your guinea pig. Um,
well,
but yeah, so that's and so much of what we know, even that basic thing about how researchers share data, came out of the AIDS epidemic.
excellent. Well,
Yeah.
Virginia Parks, thank you so kindly for spending this time with Politics Done Right. Your story is one that I think will be revealing to many. I think it's important that, like I said, that we all, share our tribulations, because in doing
Right.
so, we make it better for
Yeah.
us all.
Oh, one thing I didn't say
Yes.
is this, my number one tip. Learn how to say yes, please, and thank you. Your friends want to help. So do not hide. Do not curl up in your bedroom. talk to your friends when they offer help. Give them specifics. Say, yes, I only wanted to eat bananas for a while, for a few days, and friends brought me bananas. So, so say yes. Say yes. Not only do your friends want to help you, your friends need to help you.
Yes.
They'd rather help you now than grieve later.
Virginia, thank you so kindly for having been a part of Politics Done Right.
Right. Thank you.
There are people in this country that seek health care at a late time because they know that they never get comparable health care, or sometimes the health care they get is not beneficial. And here is this black doctor. She understood what she was reading on her CAT scan of her lungs. She understood it. She's dead. And when I saw the program, I was sort of upset at the system, but I was also upset at her. I'm going to explain what I mean after I play the video. Check this out, and then we'll take it on the other.
The treatment and death of a black doctor in Indiana is creating new calls for justice over the racial disparities in the pandemic. According to the COVID tracking project, black people are dying at nearly twice the rate of white people nationwide. At least 52,000 black Americans have died from the virus so far. That is 17% of deaths where race is known. Those numbers are underscored by Dr. Susan Moore, a family physician and black woman who died of the virus after posting a video to social media saying she faced racist treatment by a white doctor at an Indiana hospital.
They're not going to treat me here properly. The CT went down a little bit into my lungs, and you could see new pulmonary infiltrates, new lymphadenopathy all throughout my neck. And all of a sudden, yes, we'll treat your pain.
Her story inspired an op-ed from other black doctors in the Washington Post asking America to say Dr. Susan Moore's name. Joining me now is one of the authors of that op-ed, Dr. Camara Phyllis Jones. She's a senior fellow and adjunct associate professor at Morehouse School of Medicine, and she's also a former president of the American Public Health Association. This doctor's experience and this message that she left on social media, as you know very well, resonated with a lot of Americans because they have felt that way when they've gone through the American healthcare system, that they have been treated differently. Black people have been treated differently than white people. How do you go about trying to address that issue?
Well, thank you for having me. The first thing to do is to recognize that racism exists. It exists in the healthcare system. It exists in our justice system, in our educational systems. So the first thing is to name racism, to believe Dr. Moore's cry for help when she was naming racism as it occurred to her. And then once you do that, then you have to identify the mechanisms. In this case, there's no accountability. There are, few black doctors. There's just a disrespect. And once you identify how is racism operating here in the Indiana University hospital system, are we treating people differently by race? Be unafraid to look at your data, not just patient by patient, but look over 6 months. Look at each individual practitioner over 6 months. So you have to acknowledge that racism exists and then think, it's not that if we fix it here in the healthcare system, we're done. Racism is woven into the fabric of our society. It's foundational in our nation's history. It continues to exist, and it has profoundly negative impacts on the health and well-being of the whole nation. We need to wake up out of our racism denial and understand that racism exists, and then roll up our sleeves to become actively anti-racism.
If you are at a hospital and you feel that you're not getting fair treatment because of the color of your skin, what do you do?
Well, you try to go through the mechanisms they have. So if they have a patient advocate or the like, then you try to get them in. Often family members, in the time before COVID, when you could have family members there, would be able to advocate for you because they might notice things that you wouldn't notice. But then you need to keep going higher and higher within the administration to make your case known. And sometimes because you're not in a position of power, then you're almost at the mercy of the system. So what we need to do is make sure that we never put people in those positions, that the system itself should be self-monitoring. Are we doing equitable care? It shouldn't be on patients to advocate alone.
It shouldn't be on patients to advocate alone, but while you have the power to advocate, you must advocate. Look, this is important for everybody, irrespective of whether you're black, white, blue, whatever. But there is a specific angst that black people have in hospitals. I've experienced it. My wife has experienced it, and I have made sure. Let me give instances of. I said earlier why I was sort of upset at the doctor, not in a negative way, but in a way that she was too passive. She went on social media and said, "They're treating me badly. I see infiltration in my lungs. I see these different pathological things that are occurring to me that warrants better treatment, different types of treatment." That was not awarded her. In that message that she put on Facebook, which is a powerful instrument, she should have said, "I need all of you to advocate for me. I am at this hospital. I am a doctor. This is what's happening. I want you to contact everybody you can, including the media, to come out here and ensure that they are going to give me the care that I need, because it is currently at this time. It is about to happen. I am about to get worse. I am about to die." The media that she used to tell her story could have been a clarion call as well. And one of the things that I have with many people that are aggrieved, black people, Latinos, and so forth, when things happen to them, they say, "You're treating me badly. Stop treating me badly." I don't want that anymore. I want folks to do something about having been treated badly, and do it in an immediacy, right away. I wanted her to go out there and said, "This is what I need you guys to advocate for me now." Anybody that is listening to Politics Done right now, there are people that have sent me info and say, "Hey, what's going on here? Is there something that you can do? I am homeless." I've thrown that out to them and said, "Contact XYZ." I have contacted that. This woman need not have died. This is a dead woman that need not have died, because the Facebook family could have been her advocate if she had given a command. "Do this for me now, numero uno." Secondly, she should have raised bloody hell. She could talk enough to say, "Get me a supervisor in here now." And by the way, if you don't get it here, by the way, I've already contacted the media to tell you that the kind of treatment I am getting is the minority treatment in the hospital. That is what needed to have been done. We have to be self-advocates. I remember being in the hospital, walking around with the IV connected to me, and walking around when I couldn't see a doctor. I remember when my daughter was born, and they had my wife was really sick. We didn't know she had lupus then. It was just called preeclampsia. And I ran around that hospital and got that damn doctor. I didn't get them. I was around there searching, finding, not waiting for something to happen, but making something happen. We all have to be our brother's keepers. We all have to make things happen, especially in a capitalist society where you are just an agent of profit. Remember that. You are just an agent for profit. And if you want, you have to advocate. You have to have those. We have to be a team advocating for each other. This woman need not have died. Up next, we have Brian Carr. But before we go to Brian Carr is a chief advancement officer of Northwest Assistant Ministries. And guess what? Teresa Allen, one of our members here at KPFT, is offering $1,000 to that Northwest Assistance Ministries because they're doing good work in Houston. They're helping the poor. They're feeding the hungry. They're doing what's necessary during this pandemic. She's offering $1,000 to anybody, to that organization, for those of you who call 713-526-5738 and support Politics Done Right on KPFT. 713-526-5738 to support Politics Done Right on KPFT. Teresa Allen will then give $1,000 to Northwest Assistant Ministries. Let's listen to their Chief Advancement Officer, Brian Carr. I'm here today with Brian Carr. Brian Carr is a Chief Advance Officer for Northwest Assistance Ministries. In these times that are very difficult. Where we have a government that is not responsive to the people, it falls on the goodwill. It falls on the goodwill of many people to go out there and do the necessary work to make sure that we behave as we should as human beings, unlike what goes on around. So what I want to do is, first of all, thank you, Brian, for being here with us. How are you doing this morning?
Thanks for having me, and happy holidays to you.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever it is to whomever. Welcome aboard. Anyhow, you are the Chief Advancement Officer at Northwest Assistant Ministries, which you guys are an organization that help people out in their times of need, in their stressful times. What are you seeing in Houston area where you work, the Northwest portion of Houston where you work, compared to what you've seen throughout the last few years?
It's been really heartbreaking, the need that we have seen. From about March all the way through today, we've seen a steady increase in requests for rent assistance, for food assistance, assistance to pay light bills. We have a family violence center that has seen an increase in domestic violence reports. We've really seen people that have never asked for help before. Over 50% of those that have requested assistance from us this year, this is their first time requesting help from anyone. And so people that were really felt comfortable, that felt steady and had a good foundation under them, this year has really just pulled the rug out from underneath them. It has been, it's really been heartbreaking this year to see how many people need help.
Now, tell me beforehand, tell me a little bit about Northwest Assistance Ministries. Where did you come from? How did you come about? What do you do? Where do you cover? Is it just the Houston, Texas area? Tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. About 35, 37 years ago, 10 different congregations in the northwest area of Houston wanted to address the economic downturn that had happened because of the energy bust at that time. And they realized that as a group, they could serve the community much stronger than as individual congregations. So they started Northwest Assistance Ministries. We're faith-based, but we're not a denomination. We work with hundreds of congregations. We work with the public. We work with the school districts. We work with the government. But our main mission is to provide basic human needs. And so we have a food pantry. We have a pediatric health center. We have an assistance department that helps with rent and housing. We are one of the largest providers of Meals on Wheels to homebound seniors in the Northwest area. We have a training and learning center, and we have a senior center for programs for seniors as well. So we're a multifaceted organization trying to supply just the basic human needs: food, shelter, financial stability, job training, workforce development, to help those clients that want to dig out of this hole, that want to improve their life. And it's kind of that old adage, you can teach someone to fish or you can give them a fish. And so we're teaching them to fish, but sometimes you just have to reach down and give them a helping hand, get them on solid ground so they can then better their lives. And that's where Northwest Assistance Ministries fits in. We're not welfare. We're not a government extension. Every dollar that comes to us is asked for. It's either from the public, from foundations, corporations, and so it's really is a matter of neighbors helping neighbors.
Well, you know, in a time where I have to be honest, I have lost much faith in churches. I've lost much faith in what's been going on. When I heard about what you guys are doing, a conglomeration of churches that are actually doing a good deed, all I could say is, for me, that was impressive, because what I found is that most of our, not most, but a large proportions of our churches have been in it for building the church, building the masonry, building these things that Jesus would have thrown out on the Sabbath for the things that they're building now. And to watch that there's an organization like yours out there doing what I believe the church should be doing in extension of whatever social programs there are, I'd like to give you some kudos on that, because I think it is imperative that if you're going to have these 501c3 type statuses, etc., that you actually, there's a reason for doing it. So first of all, thank you for what you're doing. Now, you stated earlier that and I like a phrase that you use. You said you're not welfare. The fact of the matter is, most people don't want welfare. Most people want to go out there and work. Most people want to do something with dignity. You talked about not giving them the fish, but teaching them how to fish. That is wonderful. The other thing, of course, is if you want to teach them to fish, you need to make sure they're fish in the sea, and also that there's a rod with which to catch the fish. So,
Exactly.
and that is what has been missing many times around. Now, you found that you said something that really touched me when you talk about there are people now that are asking for help that had never in their lives asked for help. Right? Americans have always, for a long time, known how to suffer in silence. Expand on that a bit, because I don't think people understand the severity with which this stuff is really hitting America and people that had never thought they would have ever gotten hit before.
As I said, over half of the people that we have served in 2020, as far as rent assistance and food assistance, this is the first time they've asked for help. And we know, expanding on what you were saying, how deep they had to get in their disparity to be able to request that help, to be able to humble themselves, to be able to reach out and say, I need a little help here. And I'll tell you a story, a quick example. We had a gentleman that owned his own business. He was a mechanic, and his niche was he would travel to you and work on your car wherever it was. And he had a really booming business. And he was raising 3 daughters on his own. And they were getting along. They weren't rich by most people's needs, but they were very comfortable and they were secure. Well, once COVID hit, a lot of people lost the income to be able to get their cars worked on. And he went from 10 to 12 jobs a week down to 4 to 5 jobs a week. Then it went down to 2 jobs a week. And then the phone stopped ringing. And this man, very prideful man, very proud that he had built his business, that he was taking care of his family. He walked into NAM and he was crying. He was crying to our case managers, and he didn't know how to ask for help. He didn't even know what to ask for. But he did, and we were able to give him some food vouchers. We were able to help him with several months' rent and give him an opportunity to breathe, to then look at other ways to market his business. And while the economy still hasn't rallied completely, he's back on his feet, and he is paying his rent on his own now. And he just needed that breather. He needed a little boost to help him. He had reached the end of everything he knew to do. And I think that's a good reflection of the clients that have come in this year for the first time. They really don't even know how to ask for help.
That is, Brian, I tell you something. What is interesting is his story is a story of millions of people. All the people that I know that are needy, okay? That's the kind of story that I hear. The stories that I hear on TV about the welfare queen and all of that's dramatized, right? That is generally, believe it or not, the exception. most people, when I get up in the mornings and you go on the freeway are full. Where are
Right.
those people going? I try, in a lot of we're a political program, I granted, but I wanted to have you on because politics is also social issues as well. And having good works like you're doing, I think it's important for people to see. And having you say what you've said about that mechanic, I think gives a different tonality to many who would just think, oh, they're just looking for a handout. Most people don't want a handout.
We had a lady just yesterday. We're doing a holiday toy distribution and holiday food. And there was a lady who waited in line for a couple of hours to come in and get some toys. And she was very polite, very respectful, very humble, very quiet lady. And we had to fill out a little sheet of paper that said, how many children are you getting toys for? And she just quietly said, 11.
Whoa.
And we said, 11? And she goes, yes, I'm having to raise my grandchildren.
Oh.
Her, we found out the story that she has 2 children and they both have lost their income due to COVID. Both of them actually caught the disease, caught the virus. And so she has been raising these 11 children and she's retired. She has done her work. She has raised her family. And now out of nowhere, she has 11 children to feed, to buy clothes for, to put a shelter over. And so she came to NAM and we were able to load her up with a sleigh full of presents. And we got her a holiday meal with turkey and all the fixings. And she was just so grateful. She didn't want more. She wasn't asking for a big check. She wasn't asking, please take over for me. She just didn't know how to get toys for 11 kids on a fixed income. And to address the issue with congregations, this year we had an overwhelming need for presents, for gifts for kids. We had to collect nearly 20,000 presents this year.
Wow.
And our congregations are used to us asking for 3 to 4,000 presents. And we challenged them and we said, this is on you. We're going to ask the community, but the congregations really need to step up. The congregations themselves collected over 8,000 presents. So they are stepping up. They are hearing the need. And these are congregations from large mega churches to small churches that maybe have 10 people. And a lot of them aren't meeting right now. They're not even collecting
Tides.
tithes and donations and offerings. But yet they are filling our food pantry with food staples, and they are donating presents to those that they don't even know, that they may not belong to their church, but they belong to their community. And I think if we look at that word community, that's where the strength is. That's where the strength is in this country, and that's where the strength is in nonprofits like NAM. We don't serve all the United States. We're not a large organization. We serve roughly a service area that has 1.1 million people, not even all of Houston. And we depend on the public, we depend on corporations, we depend on donations from anywhere. And the congregations are a big part of that. And what we found this year was there was an expectation of an organization like NAM to step up and meet the need. But the community says, you're going to do the work, but we're going to give you the tools. We're going to give you those fishing poles. We're going to open up that lake for you to fish in. We're going to supply you with what you need to serve the community. And it has been beautiful. It has been humbling from my experience to sit there and watch the lines wrap around our building for assistance, but then realize that the community is meeting that need. And America is not dead. The idea of helping your neighbor is not gone away. I think it's stronger than ever.
Brian Carr, tell me, how can people, I want people to contact you guys. I want people to be there for you, not only for the holiday season, but going forward, because this thing is long lasting. How can people help you?
The easiest way is just to go to our website, which is NAM, N-A-M, online.org, namonline.org, and find out about our programs. There's ways to volunteer. There's ways to donate, and spread the word. Let others know that there are organizations out there that we're here. We're here to help.
Brian Carr, Chief Advancement Officer for Northwest Assistant Ministries. From this humanist to this Christian, thank you so kindly for the work that you're doing. I think you bring back hope to a whole lot of people with the work that you guys are doing. And that work, that statement about community and us wanting to help each other means more than anything else. Thank you so kindly for being here.
Well, thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that. Folks, please remember, give us a call at 713-526-5738. Again, that number is 713-526-5738. Support KPFT in the name of Politics Done Right by calling 713-526-5738 or going to kpft.org. Remember, Teresa Allen will give $1,000 to NAM, $1,000 to Northwest Assistance Ministries with your contribution to KPFT via Politics Done Right. 713-526-5738. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out! Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is a progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, progressive, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. We are an independent media outlet that, unlike mainstream media beholden to corporations, we only owe allegiance to you. Remember, you can also send me a tweet at EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.